Front Row Racing DP here, and I'm on to the final video of the series for the wheel settings for Project Cars. Now I'm applying these settings on PS4, but I have been informed that they will work on PC and Xbox, so feel free to give them a blast. The settings I've actually got from Jack Spade's workings. He's got 4 different lots of settings. I've gone for the 66% SOP lateral settings that I've applied to all of the cars, as I have found them to be quite a comfortable setting to use. Gives you a good feel of what is happening on the rear of the car. Okay, so on to the final video where we're going to cover the go-karts and the American stock car. So there's only 3 cars on this video, so it'll be a bit of a short one. Now before we apply these settings to the car, I would advise that you make sure that you go into options, controls, calibrate your wheel. As you can see, I'm using a Thrustmaster T300 RS, and calibrate your force feedback. In here, make sure you've got tyre force on 100. You can also match up these settings if you wish. The scoop near scoop reduction can be quite an important one, but also make sure that in the options you go to controls, configuration, and try and match these up as well if you can, but also put the force feedback at 100%. Now once you have applied these 2 settings, make sure you do apply the other settings. If you don't, your wheel is going to be quite heavy, and you don't want it too heavy. Once you have applied the other settings that I'm about to show you, if you still feel that your wheel is a little too heavy, then reduce the tyre force, not the force feedback, and that should help you out a little bit. Okay, so once you've done those 2, you want to go into the actual cars themselves. Now I have already applied settings to all of the cars, so I'm going to go into the go-karts, the 125cc shifter, and I'm going to go to edit current setup, but you're going to need to go to create new setup. And so I'm into edit current setup, and here are the settings for the force feedback for the wheels on the go-karts. Okay, so feel free to hit pause, take a picture. Now the settings on this particular car are very different to all of the other cars, with it being a go-kart. There you go, there's the settings for that car. I have covered all of the other classes now in other videos, so if you do want to know about the road cars, GT cars, touring cars, prototypes, open wheelers, I have got YouTube videos on those. So the 250cc supercart, we shall go into that. And once you have applied these settings, do make sure that you save it to all of the tracks. You have then got a baseline of how your wheel is going to behave for all of the circuits for that car. Once you have done that, you can then go and work on individual tracks car setup, but at least you'll have a baseline for all of your wheel settings. And you might be surprised just how much difference it can make applying these settings. I have found it does seem to help a lot. Okay, so that's the go-karts covered. So the final car to do is the American Stock Series. Interesting car this, quite tricky to drive, but I do believe with these particular settings it will be much easier. And to be honest, I'm a bit disappointed in a way that they haven't got trucks on this game. I was thinking about it last night. I would love to just go and do a bit of truck racing against me mates. That would be a right laugh. It'd be absolute carnage, but it would be good. Now I do know that on R Factor, R Factor 2, I'm fairly sure you can have truck racing on there. But anyway, the Monterey stock car settings, here they are on the screen, so feel free to take your pictures and apply these settings to your own cars and see how you get on. Now if you don't necessarily get on with how these settings feel, I mean it may take you a few laps to get used to it, but if you don't feel that it really has helped, then have a look on the Project Cars blog for Jack Spade's wheel settings. there is 4 different classes of settings. Like I say, I've gone for the 66% SOP lateral. So if you find that these settings don't really work for you, you may find that one of the other 3 will work for you, or perhaps you will need to just work a little bit on car setup. I've had a couple of cars where I've applied the setup, and for a couple of laps I'm like, this feels a little bit odd, a little bit floaty perhaps. But then I've actually adjusted the car setup, perhaps added a little bit of downforce or a little bit of front camber, or adjusted the gears a little bit or the brakes a little bit, and the car comes alive and feels very, very nice on the wheel. So anyway, there we go. That's the end of the series of videos for the wheel settings for project cars. So I hope this has helped. Thanks for watching. I've been Front Row Racing DP. Feel free to come and watch any of my live feeds that I do on Twitch. I do tend to do a few through the week, either just driving at random different races, a bit of my career mode, or even perhaps if people want a little bit of help on help or advice about a car or a track, I don't mind people asking if I can have a look at a certain car or circuit for them. If I'm not busy doing something, I don't mind jumping in the car to go and have a look. And as you may have just heard, I'm now being barked at by the dog, so I am going to have to bring an end to this video. So as I mentioned, I've been Front Row Racing DP, otherwise known as Dave. Thanks for watching, and I hope